Welcome to Command Control Power, Apple Tech Support and Business Talk, the longest-running Apple consulting podcast. For over a decade, we've released weekly episodes featuring real-world stories from the front lines of tech support, in-depth discussions about managing clients and businesses, and conversations with fellow consultants and industry partners. What you're about to hear is a best-of episode originally broadcast on August 21st, 2021. A classic installment from our archives. To hear our latest, regularly recorded episodes, you'll need to subscribe to our Patreon-exclusive podcast feed. Designed specifically for Apple IT professionals, this private feed dives deeper into the challenges of running your consultancy, supporting your clients, managing staff, and maintaining large device fleets. For a modest monthly contribution, you'll gain access to a rich library of bonus content, exclusive interviews, and insights you won't find anywhere else. To subscribe, simply visit commandcontrolpower.com and click support.
Welcome to Command Control Power. We have a new feature this week, and I think we're going to try and make this a monthly thing. We'd like to welcome to the show as our guest co-host, one of our patrons, longtime supporter, Tim Pearson of Creative Techs. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Hey guys, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I should say welcome back to the show. It's good to have you on wearing your CreativeTechs hat, wearing your guest co-host Command Control Power hat. You know, we want this to be a little bit different from our usual kind of interview style shows where we interview a colleague, but we want to just talk to you as more of like a roundtable, and you know, you're one of us today, Tim. So thank you again for joining us.
Oh, well, awesome. I'm excited to be a part of the team, and I will try to trample on anything Sam says anytime he talks.
You'll fit right
great,
in.
Thanks. No different than any other show, Tim.
Now, Tim, I want to start off on the right foot, but we do have a bone to pick with you right out of the gate. What's going on here? We're in the Northeast, and all of a sudden we got smoke, we got hazy skies. What's going on over there?
And you know what? We have not had a smoke day yet here in my part of the world, in my little bit of the country. All the fires this year are to the south of us and to the east so far. And, you know, that's the way the weather blows. The wind blows east. And so, yeah, we don't get it yet. Sorry, guys.
Now, you're kind of right off the mainland, right? You're on the peninsula, actually? Or?
Yeah, I'm on the Kitsap Peninsula. So if you envision your map of Washington State or you know where Seattle is, I'm actually 10 miles outside of the city, but I'm a 45-minute ferry ride.
Wow.
Gotcha.
So what's the earliest you ever schedule for a client? It's all got to be around the ferry schedule, right?
I mean, it is. I typically don't do a lot of on-site work. You know, most of what I do, even pre-pandemic, I was probably work from my home office about 80% of the time. So it's not a huge shift for me. Although yesterday I was in the city and I had a 9 o'clock with a customer and I made it. It was fine. I tell you though, getting home in the afternoon in the summertime is a pain because everybody's, you know, heading out. And so, yeah, I spent like an hour and a half waiting for a ferry. So that's a little frustrating.
Do you ever have the temptation to just swim it? Your own boat or swim it?
Yeah, I mean, both. I mean, the nice thing about the ferry commute is that I can work, again, because I'm used to working remotely for anything. You know, like I was issuing office licenses and I was changing passwords and I hopped on a user's computer and showed them how to reset their password with Jump Cloud. So it's pretty seamless for my customers for the most part. It does take a little bit more scheduling on my part because I can't just be like, oh yeah, I'll be there in an hour, which was kind of how I operated before. But yeah.
Yeah, I was really hoping to get up that way last summer, and toward the end of the summer, and that's just when all the wildfires of 2020 kind of hit their peak, you know, and we started to see yellow and orange and red skies out west there, and it was almost like state by state. You know, we were up in Washington State, and it was like, we started seeing yellow skies on the coast, and Oregon, I think, had orange skies, or maybe their skies were red, and then like the photos in the Bay Area were that like sickly like orange color, and It was just really crazy. And I was hearing last summer that my mom, who said, and she's out in Connecticut, you know, I think we have some of the smoke all the way out here. And I was like, that's crazy. I couldn't believe it. And this year, the same thing is happening, of course, much earlier in the season now, that people are reporting like in New York and Philly and different cities back east that the air quality is really poor and they're seeing smoke. And I was talking to Tim on my team recently about that. And he was saying, is that why the sunsets are so crazy? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, it reminds me of Burning Man sunsets and my, kind of first summer out west last year living in Colorado, noticing that, the sunsets were just really kind of epic, but it was for a really kind of sad reason that the skies are smoke filled. So
it's kind of like living on Tatooine.
Nice. Joe doesn't get any movie references, just so you know.
Sorry. Joe, that Star Wars stuff, I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
It's on my list, yeah.
Not to be confused with Star Trek, Joe.
Right. Yeah. I'm the rare nerd combination that's neither a sports guy nor a Star Wars buff, I guess. So I don't know what that makes me. Like, just a traditional computer nerd, I guess. I don't know. I'll get to it at some point. My nephews are super into Star Wars, and I told them I would love for them to like introduce me to Star Wars, like tell me what's happening and stuff. We'll watch it with them, for the first time.
Tim, we'll have to have a conversation about what order to watch those movies in too, so Joe watches them correctly.
Oh yeah, because there's a method to the madness. You got to do it right. I mean, you guys probably do this too. Seem to be in Zooms all the time with clients, and 99% of the time I wear just like a black t-shirt and jeans because it's slimming for a fat guy a little bit. It looks fine on Zoom. The one day I screwed up and I wore a Star Wars t-shirt and I didn't even realize it. And I hopped on the Zoom with this woman, and it was a 5-minute thing to reset her email password and talk about she had potentially been hacked and try to figure out what had happened. And we spent an hour and a half because I couldn't get her to stop telling me about Star Wars and the method to watch the movies in.
Oh, wow.
And she has a kid and I have a kid. And so she was telling me how the order that they were watching them in, because her kid is a little bit older than mine, and which ones were scary and which weren't, and all the other parts of the universe. Anyway.
The next question is, did you bill for all that time?
Right.
I did not bill for that time because they're on a flat fee. Nice. But I mean, that's a great question. I mean, since we're just buddies spitballing over a beer, I'd love to ask you a question about how you would handle something, because I just discovered a mistake in my business.
Yeah, let's hear it. I'd be really curious to hear that.
So I did a little audit of my books, and I realized that I have a customer that I have not invoiced since last, I think it was August.
Oof.
Oh, wow.
It doesn't make or break me, but it's more than $1,000 a month.
Mm.
That's considerable.
It's certainly not a small amount. And then the question would be, there's a couple things to it, right? As I kind of delve into it myself, I struggle with this. Golly, they never mentioned it either. Right.
Mm-hmm, sure.
Most of my customers would be like, hey, it's the 3rd of the month. Can you send me an invoice? Or not most, but I have a lot of customers who are like that, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah.
My question is, how would you approach it with them? Like, what would you say? On the one hand, I'm inclined to just start sending them invoices now and forget about the whole year because it was my screw up or whatever. And I'm certainly happy to walk away from it because I've missed it. On the other hand, I'd be kind of curious what happens if I send them, hey, this is what happened. Mm-hmm. What do you think we should do here?
Yeah.
Does that change how I feel about them? And do I go, well, I've lived without that revenue for a year, so I don't need them?
After doing 400 shows, it's inevitable that this has come up, and it actually did come up because I talked about it on the show. This happened to me, and I want to hear more of the details of the specifics of the company that you're dealing with. But I talked about the story of when I was in my family-run manufacturing business. Anytime we had a journeyman over and they left something behind, whether it was like a wire stripper or a screwdriver, everybody was like, whoo-hoo, we got a new wire stripper. And so I call it the screwdriver effect, And this has happened to me with clients, the billing thing, I'll get to that in a minute, where I've left some really important cabling, like some Thunderbolt cabling, maybe a Thunderbolt 2 to 3 adapter.
Or a keyboard or something.
Yeah,
right?
and you call them up and you're retracing your steps and you're trying to figure out where it is, and you call them up and they're like, let me look. It's right there on the desk where you left it. And they're like, yeah, I guess there's a cable here. I didn't see that.
How do you not notice that? Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So in my case, Tim, I think the amount was around $3,000. And it was for just like a yearly fee kind of thing. We weren't doing month to month. Joe and Sam have different styles. They love the monthly draw, and I could see the benefits to doing that. But for me, either a 6-month or a 12-month invoice I can run my business a little bit better doing it that way. So it's not like they were guilty of not seeing the recurring invoice like you're describing. Basically said, look, I screwed up. I never invoiced you for last year or for this last 12 months. And they're like, no problem. Just send us the invoice and we'll take care of it and we'll move forward.
I'm certain that all my customers are going to listen to this because everybody just misses hearing my voice. And so they're going to find any way they can possibly have to listen to me.
The subtext is you don't have to pay Tim because he doesn't really notice.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Don't put that out there. Yeah.
And that's a concern too, right? We haven't been paying you and you've been doing the work. So why should we start now?
Right. It's a tough, yeah. I mean, yeah, right. They might ask you to keep being their consultant and keep not charging them. I mean, that's
pro bono.
Yeah.
I have a draft email that I've sent to him. It's like, CreativeTechs is an amazing bargain, but
a little too good to be true. Yeah. Well, first of all, I wouldn't assume that they should have noticed. I mean, I like to think I would have noticed that, there isn't this money going out of one of my accounts every month that used to be or should be going. I'd like to think I would notice, but I wouldn't necessarily assume malice or something like that they didn't notice and they're hoping they can get away with it. Because I think even if that was their approach, aren't they going to owe this bill at some point, by rights? Wouldn't they feel like this is worse to actually be uncertain, that suddenly they're going to owe this full chunk of money? So I can't imagine that they noticed. I think it's just unfortunate that you forgot and that they didn't. I would approach it like you said initially, asking them, what should we do? Or maybe even presenting it like, how would you handle this if this happened to you? If you forgot to invoice one of your clients, how would you approach it? Maybe you can come to terms. I mean, especially, I wouldn't necessarily tip your hand too soon and say, I'm willing to walk away from this money. I definitely wouldn't say that to them.
Yeah, I wouldn't need it either.
No. Oh, no, of course not.
But knowing that, just bracketing it for you, you could stand to walk away and, worst case scenario, maybe you are willing to at least negotiate it down and say, I realize this is a huge chunk of money to ask you for all at once. If you can pay 6 months up front, we'll just call it a wash, or however you want to position that.
What you started to say, Tim, at the beginning would probably be my approach as well, in to say that let them know what occurred and don't say anything about what you're looking to do about it necessarily just yet. Just say, hey, we had a situation. We realized on our books that we haven't billed you for the last 12 months. Let me know if you want to chat about it and we can see what we can work out. And I mean, that's my initial gut feeling, to go about it in that way, see how they respond. Because I don't think I would look negatively upon a client if they wanted to negotiate that, because all of a sudden it's like a $12,000 gut punch too at the same time. I think if they wanted to be like, well, that kind of sucks for you, but we'll help you out and we'll meet you at 3/4 of the year, I'd be okay with that, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Would you take that and be like, they're still cool with me, or would you be a little pissed if they try to negotiate it down?
So a little more detail, peel back the onion on this client. The reason they didn't get invoiced was because they were slow pay. We switched our billing system. I couldn't take them out of the one system and put them into, I had to leave the other system online because they were still making payments into it as infrequently as they were. So it's totally on me that I just didn't do a hard cutoff, and then I just forgot about it. I'm kind of okay any way it works. I'm more nervous about the conversation than the results.
Yeah, I would be too. I mean, I hate financial conversations to begin with, and then the one to be like, hey, I didn't bill you $12,000, but is that leading to something? They're already a slow pay client, so there's something to their method of not paying you on time already. Does that lead you to believe that negotiation would go much lower, or if not at all, if you had to have it with them in particular?
It's been a long time client, and it's one of those ones where I probably said 10 years ago, hey, we know where you are. We're not worried about it. We know you're going to pay eventually. It's those little sentences that come back to haunt you later.
Yeah.
Right.
No big deal. We know where you live.
Right, but they're getting away with it for an extended period of time, and they're kind of comfortable in that. And well, I mean, I think that explanation would go a long way, actually. Not to necessarily call extra attention to this fact that they're slow to pay, but I would say, here's what happened. We've changed our accounting system. We changed over our billing system. And because there were a couple of outstanding invoices in the old system that we were still awaiting payment for, it kind of slipped my radar. Just explain it in a neutral way as much as possible. It's kind of their fault that they were slow to pay and therefore lingering in the old system for longer than they should have been. You don't have to necessarily point at that to any big degree and place blame, but you can just say like these are the circumstances. I think that's totally fair,
And that's the struggle I've been having a little bit with the like, I don't want to blame you, but it's all your fault. But I'm not going to blame you for it because I know it's my fault.
Oh man, this might be more appropriate for one of our patron-only shows, but I had this client a while back who, it was kind of a really silly thing. It was like she needed a hub for the machine at a front desk kind of situation, and we recommended a certain hub, and she bought a different hub, and then had issues and connected it herself, and it was like problematic, and she said these devices are disconnecting, and well, we recommended this hub. And she's like, well, you guys never set it up right and blah, 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 and da-da-da. And we said, well, actually, we recommended this hub and you kind of went a different direction. You did it yourself. And she's like, I don't want to play the blame game. So it's like very convenient. Like when the blame became like kind of obviously on her shoulders, that's when she decided she didn't want to play that game anymore.
That story reminds me, I had a customer, and I'm sure you guys have had this a million times. And it's one of the reasons we kind of forced everybody into some online backup is I just had one too many calls where text message from a customer where they, had a hard drive fail, and they sent me the photo of the hard drive that they purchased for that I had recommended for them to do like a time machine backup, but still in the box on top of the computer, and wondering if we could set it up for them.
Right. That's like when the phone gets lost, the iPhone gets lost, and they're like, can I turn on Find My iPhone now? And it's like, no.
As I'm listening to this and just brainstorming, I think you got to give them an out. But at the same time, and you can't totally take the blame on yourself. So if you blame the payment gateway and just say, look, we kept the other payment gateway open because you were still, as Joe said, making payments on it. And then we gave them instructions we told the new payment gateway to make the transition. That didn't happen. And that kind of fell off our radar. We're partially to blame here, but we do have this payment that needs to be made. And rather than give them the option of saying like, so what do you guys want to do? I mean, they're going to go like, well, we continue to not pay you. That sounds pretty good to us. So I would say, I would come up with an option here. You could either pay us half of the amount by this date, and set a milestone, it has to happen by this date, and then another 6-month payment here, or we're going to just double up what we're withdrawing on a monthly basis from you. And rather than trying to have them concoct some sort of a harebrained solution for you, and you're just being strung out again.
Yeah, I like presenting options. I mean, it's always nice to be able to say, here's the problem, and here are several different optional solutions. Options for solutions, because, you're giving them a choice. I mean, you're not giving them the choice of like, Jerry said, not paying, but right. You're just giving them a choice of like how to resolve it. This needs to be resolved. Like cash needs to move from your account to mine somehow. Yeah, I like that idea, just laying it out as options.
I get a lot of flack from some peers because I hate the term MSP, and you can see me putting it in quotes, and you can see me cringing and my eyes rolling. But we're a subscription-based business with our customers, and we're a monthly subscription, and you sign up for our service. And one of the beauties of being a monthly subscription is we don't do a long-term contract. And I know some people love that, and some people hate that, or whatever. But it's just not my personality to work that way. And one of the reasons is because if I don't like you, we're done. If I think you're unethical, or right. You're doing lines of coke in front of my employees while we're trying to fix your stuff, that's our last appointment. We're done, and that's okay.
That sounds like that really happened for some reason.
You mean in not offering them to your employees, right?
Oh no, they offered it to the employees.
Okay, well then what's the problem? No, sorry, take that out. I like that approach. I'm very similar. I don't want to lock them in any more than I want to be locked in, right. to the ongoing relationship. Although the one thing I read recently, I was like, I don't know if I was watching some kind of podcast or just like business advice kind of stuff. And it came down to something like the value of your company can be affected by not having
absolutely.
A contract. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing I'd never really considered before, but I don't know how much that matters, but it's an interesting reason to potentially have a contract with your clients.
Well, it matters a lot. Like 100% depends on your out strategy, right? But for my business, we absolutely want to grow our business. Right now, we're back to just being the two partners, and we've been that way for 5 years, and we're very happy that way. And we've got a great life balance. And I don't think on either of our radars, a sale it's not on our radar to sell to somebody else. If we change direction and said, I'm getting older. I hit 50 this year. At some point, I would want to retire, maybe, probably not. Certainly an exit strategy has to be some type, something on a radar. That becomes a point where, those contracts are huge, because you can't just say, yeah, we made $50,000 last year and we're going to hand you this business and you're going to make it, because really, in most of those cases, those acquisitions, they're buying your book of business and that revenue for the next 2 or 3 years.
Right. They're going to discount it if it's not, locked into a contract. If they look at, that amount of income from last year, right, and they see that, none of those people are on contract, and that if your sale includes like you leaving or, staying on for a year or whatever the case may be, they'll factor in, whoever's valuing the business or right, whatever the situation is. Yeah, they're definitely going to factor that in, that there's no guarantee. There's literally no guarantee because right, there's no contract. Just like you, I mean, for me, it never made any difference to me, because my clients, right, they're going to be with me anyway. I mean, I know I have a lot of confidence that they're going to stay on, at least the important ones. And so on, largely speaking, a contract wouldn't change that, actually. If anything, it might make it a little bit worse. Like, it might put off some clients if I were approaching them saying, I need you to sign a contract that, like, you have to be my client now forever, or for a year or something. I mean,
in most contracts, though, there's a stipulation where either side could walk at any time. So it's important, but it's not that important.
And I'll also 100% say it's really great to have a customer fire you every once in a while. It's a great learning experience, right? Maybe you're just a bad fit, but I bet, you probably neglected something, and you neglected it enough that they looked at it and saw it and were like, hey, we keep telling you this and you don't do anything about it. I think it's a great opportunity to take another look at how you do things. Now, of course, that's never happened to me.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great signal to pay attention to. That's a great point. Like, that should be a course correction there. I mean, maybe there's nothing to it. Some clients just leave for unrelated reasons. But yeah, I mean, look closely at that. Not that we should invite that, but definitely a learning experience.
Yeah, I think you guys bring up a good point about not only establishing if you're a good fit for the client, but if they're a good fit for you. I make it a point to establish that we are on the same level playing field, that they're not my employer, I am not their subordinate. What they are looking to find in a consultant, someone that they can work with and they approve of and things like that, but I'm also looking at that same thing as who I want to work with. Like, I always tell them, we may not be a good fit for you, but you may also not be a good fit for us. And sometimes people that raises some eyebrows, and I'm like, yeah, we have the right to walk away as well. I hear what you guys are saying about, like, kind of shying away from the quote-unquote MSP model, but as Jerry said, there are usually stipulations in there that can allow you to walk away, but it does value the business to say, sure, we have an annual contract with you,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the other thing that may totally blow my theory out of the water as far as, like, not having a contract is all of the things that are happening with cybersecurity, that massive threat landscape that we're now dealing with, or we've been dealing with for years, but now is really kind of front and center for everyone. And the potential that, there down the road, there will be some, like, legislation that will dictate how we run our businesses, and that, you will have to have a contract. And, at the end of the day, our insurance companies want us to have contracts. They absolutely want a contract. So maybe there's some happy medium of a model where I can do a contract with you, and it's a 30-day contract that renews every 30 days automatically unless one of us says it doesn't. But so that there's still some of that formal paperwork around it that makes everybody else happy.
But that is a good point, too, that if you didn't have a contract, you'd have less exposure if, in fact, somebody pointed the finger and said, we got compromised and you were supposed to be providing us support. Well, we just got to spit in a handshake, so...
That spit in a handshake, you're going to spend a lot in legal fees proving that you just had a spit in a handshake and it's not your problem. That's the part I think that we need to be worried about and protect ourselves. It's not, I don't think it's ever that we're badly serving somebody or out to mess them up. But the thing is, when company A, who was, let's say, a $1 million a year company, suddenly lost all of their money to a cybersecurity scam and they're losing their business, that's when you're going to see the best and the worst out of people. And people are going to do whatever they can to try and save their life or their life savings or their business or whatever that is. And that's where we got to be careful. It doesn't matter how amazing we are.
Yeah, and it may be out of their hands. You may have a great point of contact. The owner may really love you. It may be a great relationship. But if their insurance company gets involved, it's not in the client's hands how to handle it. And like you said, it's going to be like an existential crisis for them. So that's a great topic. I would love to maybe have some legal counsel on, or maybe get some people on the show to talk about contracts. We could read some legalese and put everybody to sleep on the show, maybe. But it would be nice, to review this. So Sam and Jerry, you guys both have contract. Would you say it's pretty much across the board before you engage with anybody, or is that more like for the larger monthly kind of clients?
I'd say the majority of our clients are the contracts, because that's what we know as our monthly income every month. And to do things hourly is difficult for me to maintain financially. So that's the way we prefer it. Yeah.
For me, it's about half and half. I don't really think about it too much these days. I don't lose too many clients, but then, the nice juicy clients, new business is always a challenge. And I don't think I've had to roll out the contract in a while. It's mostly, we'll work with you for a while and we'll see how it goes, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how are you guys finding new business post-pandemic? Or, we want to say post-pandemic. We just re-upped our mask mandates here in most of the counties of Washington State. So
wow.
I guess we're back in it. How are you guys finding new work?
A lot of Apple Store referrals lately, believe it or not.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it's been interesting where we've, kind of got that train going again, and things have come through Apple in that respect. So I think
okay, so now this will be an interesting conversation, because there was a lot of belly aching earlier in the day in the ACN channel on the Mac Admin Slack. So tell us, Sam, how are you getting those referrals from the Apple Store?
We just started to establish good relationships with the business pros at the various stores, and I got to be honest. I think it took a lot of time to establish the trust and relationship. Now that we're there, they reach out to us on a regular basis. So it's kind of interesting to see that. But, I know we all knew about the massive amount of turnovers that would oftentimes occur, and then we wouldn't know anybody at the stores. That hasn't been the way, at least for the people that I've known there for a while now.
I was going to say, wait for the music to stop in musical stores, and suddenly the relationships, are in different locations now.
What do you find is a successful way to engage them? Do you email them and say, hey, what's happening? I'm the ACN who can do your jump starts, or what? Do you go into the store with a box of donuts?
That was the thing, actually. Years ago, that's since changed many times over. But years ago, we used to walk in with a thing of Munchkins from Dunkin' Donuts and plop them right down on the table there and give them a stack of business cards. And my business partner was known as Munchkin J every time he walked in the door. It's like, hey, it's Munchkin J. We're gonna and that we got a lot of business that way. What was that program that Apple moved to for a while where they were divvying out all the jobs through sales something?
OnForce.
OnForce.
There you go.
That was a miserable wreck. That was.
Yeah. Did you do that?
We tried, but we ended up turning down any job because it was a third of our rate in the end,
right.
And it was just ridiculous.
Yeah,
right. $75 an hour. Can't tell them who you are.
Yeah,
you can't leave them a business card.
Right.
At the time that was half of our billing rate, and I was like, what? Why am I going to do this?
And it was also really flat rate stuff. It was set up an airport network and this is the price, and don't do anything else. And it's
right.
But my whole way of existing is get in the door and then help them with 50 things they didn't know they needed help with. So It was just a terrible deal. Yeah.
The first two of those I had, and I will caveat it by saying the only two were ones they had come from the Apple Store, and they had bought Mac Mini servers. So this was probably 10-6 days. They had bought a Mac Mini server. The store actually set up the server for them, which stores weren't supposed to do. And then they got it home and they couldn't figure out why it wasn't working as a mail server. And and they literally had used the manual, Eric's book, right? And
wow.
The support essentials, the DNS and that stuff was set to pretend co.
That's amazing.
And I was supposed to do it for $65 or something, keep it under an hour. It was fun.
Terrible.
My last straw was a job in downtown Manhattan, which would have taken me hour and a half, hour 45 maybe during rush hour, and like set up a network and a couple computers, and it was like, you can charge like $300, and I was like, this is obscene. It would like cost me a third of that to get into the city and back. I was done at that point. I said no more jobs.
This model works much better to work with companies directly. Imagine that, as like representing ourselves as our business, and Apple are aligning with us to some degree, like partnering, especially with businesses that, need to buy equipment and they're like involving us from the start. That's really handy. Like I've been on a few calls where I'm actually on the same page as Apple about the specs that I'm recommending for the client. That feels really good compared to the way it's usually where, it's like it's after the fact. They have a stack of equipment that we had no hand in recommending, and then like we're supposed to then be responsible for it later. And that in that setup, it doesn't work. It's great when we're involved from the start. It's moving in a good direction. So that's really good to hear, Sam, that you're getting those referrals too. I mean, I wish I were getting some of those referrals, but
probably the biggest ACN in Connecticut, and they used to have somebody who would professionally go out on their staff and just cultivate these relationships and go to all the local stores in Connecticut. For the most part, it's pretty challenging for me to get a referral or Joe to get a referral. But the thing about Sam is, and first of all, Sam does great work, but he also has this amazing resume. Who better would you want to hire than an Apple trainer? It certainly gives him a really good advantage, plus he's really good at it. So I'd pick Sam over me, sure. And not to blow sunshine in Sam's sky, it's just the fact. I don't even know if I'm even looked at in any way, shape, or form. It's different in every area. It's different in every region. It depends on the relationships. And like Sam said, he works really hard to build those relationships. And I can't tell you the last time I was in an Apple store and asked to speak to anybody from any one of the local business teams. So shame on me. But I'm not going to moan the blues on the ACN Slack channel. I mean, I know what I could do to make things better, and it may make things better or it may not.
Let me spin the question another way. What do you find value in your ACN membership?
Of course I do. Without the branding, without the Apple logo, without the point of presence on their website, that's worth it right there. So I think that alone stands for itself, and I would, in a heartbeat, renew, even if they had to double their price. I wouldn't like it, but I would still do it.
I personally get value as well. I mean, I couldn't really necessarily see myself as just some company,
right,
without an Apple logo on the business card, on the website, without the record on Apple's website in the ACN locator. Recently, the ACN locator changed pretty dramatically. I think it's better in most ways, but of course, one of the major changes was like, where's the option for residential? I'm still doing residential work. To quote a past episode of the show, that's the scum of the earth model that I still follow. And I think that also the residential market is very different in lots of different areas. We happen to have a pretty thriving, sort of residential market where my company is based. That's maybe not the case in lots of places. And, so I'm not that surprised that it's not an option on the locator, but I think I'd get more value if my clients didn't, or potential clients didn't get to the locator and see 1 to 100. Most of my clients are under 30, so.
That's so true.
With regards to the membership, I know some have questioned. I haven't looked at the channel lately to see what people have been saying as of late. Jerry probably hit it on the head where it's like, all right, if you're not necessarily getting referrals from the stores or whatever, but to have that, to be on the locator, to be able to use the logo and pieces that legitimize your site is a big plus. I mean, we know a couple of businesses around here that started up. They chose not to be part of the ACM program, whether it be because, they had Mac in their name or anything like that, or other reasons that they chose not to. And I wonder about how they're faring in the industry as a result of that. It makes me think about it. I wish I knew, because it would be a really good barometer to see how people do without the ACM program.
For the cost, it's not going to make a huge difference to my bottom line. It doesn't cost a lot to sort of maintain that relationship necessarily. There's a yearly fee, let's say. And then there's also the requirements to, sign some contracts and of course, carry a certain level of insurance that has its own cost associated. But I should have insurance anyway. I don't think I would, cancel that if I didn't have Apple. So, I mean, am I getting like one new client a year from that? Probably at least a few. So, it's a net positive. And also, again, just the sort of cachet factor of having the Apple logo, just the street credibility of having that association with Apple. So it's for me, it's it's not even like a question, really. I know other people make different determinations, which is totally fair, but yeah.
Well, and I think that, one of the big things that none of us have really mentioned either is the training requirements. And, some of those training requirements can be kind of a heavy lift as far as like time or, money, or that it can, prevent you from other revenue because you're working on your training materials or whatever. But I really like them. I think that it kind of helps also raise the bar for anybody else who's out there and says, hey, I'm an Apple consultant. At least there's some minimums that we hope that they're going to be able to live up to.
That's a great point. Yeah, you do want to raise the bar. You don't want to lower the bar and say like really anybody can become an ACN for any price. Or there's no cost and no training required. Then what's the point? It doesn't. Right. Yeah, it wouldn't set us apart in any way. So I do want the bar to be at a certain level, and that's a great point about the training. I forgot to mention that. I'm actually doing the Adigy training tomorrow, which is satisfying, I think, one of the MDM requirements.
I'll jump on the training bandwagon and say that hopefully people are looking at that. I know some do. I have heard from some people, potential customers, that say, hey, we saw that you do this and that, but the ones that do, I think that really does help out to show that you have some sort of certification in the industry. And again, with Apple changing that aspect of it too, I mean, there's no class for Get Support Essentials certification anymore. You got to do it on your own. So that makes it all that much harder to accomplish for the people that have never done it before.
I mean, I think it's table stakes. Yeah, I'm paying for it. It's not a significant amount of money. It's a case of wine. I could drink one less case of wine a year. I think it's important to my business. I use it as social proof. We don't do a lot of marketing around it, but what I will do is if I get a new customer and they're on the fence or whatever, I will absolutely send them to the locator and say, hey, here's 3 other guys, talk to them, see what our qualifications are, how we, I think you should talk to so-and-so and so-and-so. And it goes back to that right fit thing that we were talking about too before, right? Like, go to town. If we're not a right fit or you think somebody else can do the same job at half the price, well, you should absolutely take them and then come back to me in a month. We're good.
Right, exactly. You'll be back. I like that idea of referring them to the locator. I oftentimes think of that. It's a tough situation when you don't want a client. I don't want to necessarily send them to Jerry or Sam, at least not without a fair warning. If it's a client that I don't want.
Sure.
But I find myself doing that more so when they're a little hesitant or something. Like you're saying, I link them to the locator, saying if you don't pick me, at least pick a colleague that meets these certain criteria, has this level of certifications and qualifications. And
Sam does really good work, and so do you, Joe, but I got funny voices. I mean, what's that worth to a client, potential client? By the way, guys, I don't know if you noticed when Tim was talking about people whining on the ACN channel, and then he was talking about buying a case of wine. You see what he did there?
Oh, that's good. Yeah. That's good. Well done. Very advanced level stuff for your first guest co-hosting spot here. Very nice.
I've got some interesting stories, well, probably only interesting to me, but about what we're running into right now because we're seeing just a lot of customers onboarding employees jumping ship and going somewhere else. As everybody's starting to come back to the office, business owners want employees in the office. Employees have no desire at all to go into the office, and how those two worlds are colliding. What are you guys seeing?
I've seen some turnaround, some turnover, I should say. A couple of clients have put on our radar, somebody's leaving, so we're doing some offboarding, and of course, corresponding people then starting. So there's definitely, I think you're right on trend there. There's a certain turnover happening, which of course we're seeing on the macro level too. So it kind of makes sense that we would see that. I think it's really interesting, having proven that, many businesses can function fully remotely. I think it's going to be a difficult conversation for a lot of companies to have as they navigate what their demands are for in-person work or what the requirements are, whether it's going to be a hybrid model or just, I'm seeing a couple of clients, it sounds like they're going to be shutting down offices, which they've carried for, even this long through COVID. It's very interesting.
I think the culture, Tim, and correct me if I'm wrong, is a little different for West Coasties. And it all depends on the sizes of the businesses, I think, too. For a lot of what we see in Connecticut, it's really small businesses for the most part. 3, 5, maybe 7 people for the most part. We don't see that type of change happening, but what are you seeing on your side of the fence? Speak to the numbers a little bit of these size companies where you're seeing this pushback.
Sure. I mean, I think we're seeing it pretty much across the board, like all of us, right? I spend a lot of time talking to the business owners, especially the companies that are, let's say, 25 and fewer. I spend a lot of time either talking with the business owner or the office manager, and we've had a lot of discussions about those plans. And I've had several discussions with business owners where it's really come down to, like the guy saying, "Hey, I didn't build this company and get this office so that I could be here all by myself all the time." Almost like he's paying these people to also be his friends. And I actually pinned one guy on that, and I said, "You realize you just told me you just have employees, so you have friends." Yeah, I guess I did.
Well, at the same time, I've noticed that some people work better in collaboration than others, you know, and sometimes the collaboration is harder with tools. I mean, people, it's like, oh, just use Slack, then you can collaborate. Right. Well, it doesn't really work for everybody. Some people like to have a conversation in person. I mean, literally, not me. I'm cool just to like make a very brief small talk with clients on the phone and then get on to the next thing. I've just seen some people and companies work much better where there is that serendipitous kind of conversation happening around the water cooler, as they say. So there's a style of work, where people like to be seen and to see each other and like to just have those in-person conversations. So I kind of get it. I wish it weren't part of this because, to your point about friends versus employees, it's like, you can get social interactions elsewhere in life. Like it shouldn't necessarily be part of your job any more than healthcare should be part of your job. It's kind of a weird kind of thing that gets attached to that. Then again, it's where you're spending 8 hours a day, let's say. So, or it's how you're spending 8 hours a day, not necessarily where. And so some people do find it like really important to have social interactions be like very well integrated in that. So I can understand it to some extent, but I'm not necessarily one of those people. So
I totally get it. We work with a lot of design agencies, a lot of creative people. So they do need that interactivity, to kind of bounce ideas off each other. Last year, early in the pandemic, we were advising teams to just like everybody fire up Zoom and then work like you're in the office. Or they wouldn't be meeting, they would just be working. And then someone could just shout out, "Hey, so-and-so, what do you think about this?" And then they could share their screens from there.
Nightmare. That's the worst thing for me. Like those interruptions are terrible. Like I
I think that exactly. But that's what you get if you work in an office all the time. It's all interruptions. So
that's why I don't. It's like it's like one of the reasons I like left the Northeast. And like for me, it's just harder to work that way. Even the threat of like an interruption. Just knowing that somebody could pop in, whether it's an employee or delivery or whatever it is. It could be so minor, like from their perspective, it's, "Hey, how you doing? Good. How are you? Cool. All right." That to me is disruptive. It doesn't have to be a long conversation. Like it interrupts my train of thought. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm overreacting, but yeah, the idea of like that telepresence, like constant telepresence or something, right. I don't know about that. Send me a text and I can answer it, asynchronously. That's the idea.
I don't think anybody did that for very long. What's been interesting for me is as we're going back to the office and seeing people. A junior designer at X company is leaving and going to another company for, let's say, a $30,000 a year raise. There's a lot of that happening. As they're coming into these new companies, the requests that they're making, or even existing employees, the requests that they're making to come back to the office to be like, work 2 days a week in the office and 3 days at home or whatever. And then they want to be set up identically on both ends. I had a guy tell me, he was spoiled, so he had to have a 4 or a 5K monitor, but he needed to have 2 of them. And then he needed them both at home and at work.
Wow.
He didn't want a laptop, so he wanted 2 computers because he felt that it was really important for him to be able to bike to work, and he didn't want to be burdened with the extra weight of carrying the laptop back and forth.
Wow. I feel like it's the pendulum swinging back the other way. For a long time, workers have not really held much power, like in general. Maybe the type of client you're talking about is more of a, high-skilled employee, specialized, that kind of thing. Maybe not
Depends
exactly
on if they're listening or not.
Exactly. I'm trying to flatter them in case they are. No, but in all honesty, I mean, they're somewhat, higher skilled and
Sure.
less expendable. And so maybe they can, leverage that for better positioning and just being taken care of in a company. But until now, they haven't really been able to leverage that in many cases. And broadly speaking, workers have been clearly not respected, I think, broadly speaking, in society, So it's the pendulum swinging back. Of course, companies can just look at that and say, we're not going to raise our prices to be able to pay people more and set them up better. We'll just outsource, and until we kind of stabilize the worldwide, just our overall functioning of society, we can keep externalizing this stuff and saying, let's outsource to a place that doesn't respect their workers as much as we do,
What about this gigantic spaceship that Apple built, and they're getting all this pushback from the workers and nobody wants to work? And I just think back to something like my dad would say, where nobody wants to work. Everybody's home and they're getting their money. And the perception, from the employer is you're not really getting your value if somebody's home because there's too many distractions maybe. I think Apple has a real serious problem with getting their workforce back in place.
Yeah, they almost have to justify the building at this point, whether it's appropriate or not. But
they don't. They've got all the money in the world. It's paid for. They're not worried about it.
Well, that's
Have
true.
you guys been there?
They're hurting. Yeah, to the visitor center.
Yeah, it's beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Yeah, I mean, I like to think if I were in that area, I would probably want to work on that campus. It's a pretty neat place to be. But at the same time, I want the flexibility, and I think they're striking a balance, right? What are they doing? Through 2 or 3 days remote, something like that. So.
In a city like Seattle, it's not so much that people don't want to go into the office and hang out with their coworkers. It's more that they don't want to commute. For instance, pre-pandemic, we were living in North Seattle. My wife worked downtown. She drove in to work and back, and it was a 45-minute each-way commute, 7 miles, by the way. Working from home, she's like, well, look, I've got an extra hour and a half in my day. Sadly, a lot of times she still spends that working for the company doing stuff, right. But it's an extra hour and a half that you don't have otherwise. There's no way to multitask in the car. Right. I mean, we all know that. We're consultants. We probably multitask in the car better than anyone else, right? I think that's a big part of it, is that at least for people here, where they're just like, look, I want my hour and a half. Where do I get that?
Right. No one should have to commute.
You guys are complainers. But that's life. I was talking to a guy who had a job for me to do down in Norwalk, and I was moaning the blues about the traffic. But that's it. You want to make a little bit of money, you have to suck it up and drive to the job, because you can't do it remote, because you have to do physical hands-on work, and that's it. Right. Either take it or leave it.
Can we focus on the fact of you taking jobs in Norwalk, where I am?
I think I know where Jerry was headed in Norwalk, I will say. And it wasn't to your client, Sam. I can see your point too, Jerry. I mean, there's definitely a level of entitlement also among, especially those of a certain, generation or whatever. I get that too. Both of those things can be true. People wanting a certain quality of life, people, wanting to be respected as workers, worker bees, not just treated as expendable, and also needing to kind of step up and being okay, my job is over here, I'm going to go over there, or I'm going to move closer. Of course, it's not just as easy as moving closer arbitrarily, because it's oftentimes much more expensive.
Joe, I want my 2.5 hours back.
It's a tough one. It is a tough one. I mean, we have to prioritize remote, obviously, but sometimes on-site is needed, and there's driving involved, and maybe we try to arrange it so it doesn't have to happen during peak traffic times and stuff. Or maybe if the work has to be done in person, or there have to be days where employees go into the office for collaboration, it can be a shorter work day. You have to get that time back somehow, let's say. I mean, you don't have to, but it would be nice if we could. And other countries have experimented with 6-hour work days, 4-day work weeks. I don't know if this is just people gaming the system, but oftentimes it results in the same or better productivity.
I have a friend that moved to Germany for the company he was working with, and he was in awe of their workplace system and how people were remote 1 day a week and working just like you were talking about, Joe. And he was still getting the same done, he said. It was just a different world and a different placement on being in person all the time as it is in the U.S.
Joe, if you sub out me, can I sub out Sam? Because Sam lives in Norwalk, and maybe I can make a little bit of money and get Sam to go in and do the work.
I don't want to go anywhere.
Skim off my.
Can you send Sam but charge a travel fee as if it was Jerry?
Now we're talking.
Now we're getting somewhere.
At least pay for my lunch, though, Jerry.
I don't know if you guys saw this. I thought it was amazing. It was posted on Twitter. Samuel Pollan posted, European out of offices, quote, I'm away camping for the summer. Email again in September. Okay. American out of offices, quote, I have left the office for 2 hours to undergo kidney surgery, but you can reach me on my cell anytime. That was brilliant. Well, on that note, thank you again, Tim Pearson of CreativeTechs, for this inaugural guest co-host spot on Command and Control Power. Couldn't have gone better. So thanks very much for your support over the years and for doing this episode and this recording. And we hope to keep seeing you out there in the community on Slack and elsewhere. Thanks again, Tim.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Jerry does his voices of customers of all kinds.
Am I on the cloud?
Joe spins his deeply detailed yarns all the time.
I have a whole story about this.
Sam is on the road again, phoning in from a hotel.
At least we know where I am.
Half a century combined of Apple expertise right now. Right now. My Mac is slow. Have you tried restarting? Well, the fans won't blow. Have you tried restarting? But my data is gone. Have you tried restarting? I dropped it in the pond. Have you tried restarting? Well, my coffee is cold. Have you tried restarting? Well, I'm getting old. Have you tried restarting? I fell off a horse. Have you tried restarting? I'm getting a divorce. Have you tried restarting? Command, control, power. Command, control, power.
We'd like to welcome to the show as our guest co-host, one of our patrons, longtime supporter, Tim Nyberg of the Mac Guys Plus.
Tim Nyberg?
Tim, welcome.
No.
Tim, no.
Oh my
Joe.
God, sorry, I copied and pasted the wrong thing.
Oh
What am
my God.
I did a Command F for Tim, and I copied and pasted the wrong freaking Tim.
I can't get
Tim
any
Wow.
respect.
Tim Nyberg also reached out to me, like right after you did, Tim. So I said, no, I think we got somebody already, but I put him on my little list here, and I just freaking copied.
Well,
and
that
pasted
was
him.
embarrassing.
Yeah. That was really embarrassing. Just air
That's-
that. Anyway.
That's awful.
Jesus.
That's just awful.
I know that is.
We're never
that
going
is
to let Joe live that down.
oh, God. Okay, let me try that again. Tim Pearson of CreativeTechs.
There we go. No, I think that's good. Good call. Joe, what would you do? Or no, you're Joe. What's the other guy? Sam.
Yeah, I'm the other Tim.
Okay, we're
That's
even. Tim.
payback for the intro.
Yeah, exactly.
I was waiting for something like that.
Nicely done.
Yeah.
Well played.
We'll play it, sir.